Hello and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how I got into stacking gold and silver and what my experience was like as a brand new stacker. And maybe some of you can relate to that experience, and maybe other people had better experiences than I did. But I really didn't know anything about precious metals prior to earlier in this year in 2021. And like many people, the crisis with the health crisis in our country offered up opportunities to learn about ways to protect ourselves, not just from diseases, but from financial catastrophes and downturns and so forth. And so, after watching a lot of YouTube videos myself, I decided to take my first journey to my local coin shop. And in the town where I live, I am blessed to have a couple here in town and one in a nearby town. And so I thought I would just go check those out, kind of see what I saw, and maybe put some of the knowledge that I had learned from other YouTubers to the test. I really just went in trying to find three coins for my three kids, just something to get them started. And unfortunately, the first experience I had with my local coin shop wasn't the most pleasant. I went in to just see what they had to offer, and felt like that being a new customer, a new person, that I might be able to learn some things from those guys. And the first shop I went to, honestly, they weren't very receptive. They seemed to think I was more of an annoyance than anything else, asking the questions I was asking and not knowing anything about what I was talking about. Sensed some frustration from them. So I went to another local shop and had a much better experience there. Ended up making my first silver purchase from that shop, and I'll show you kind of what I picked up at the time. But, I found some of these just rounds. At the time, I didn't really know the difference between a coin and a round, but I called these coins, even though technically they're rounds, because they're not minted by any country. They're just generic 999 silver rounds, and they were made into a likeness of the Mercury dimes, which from YouTube I'd known a little bit about what Mercury dimes were. And so this is a replica, an awful large replica of the Mercury dimes. And I picked up one for each one of my kids and bought a few tubes for them to go in, keep them protected, sort of. And so got these three identical dimes, or replica dimes, and really had a much better experience with that guy. The owner of that shop was much more accommodating to my questions. He was super kind and willing to walk me through all the different options when it comes to buying silver. And at the time, silver prices were pretty high compared to what they are now, and I think I probably, looking back on it, overspent. But I guess you could argue that there's no bad time to buy silver, and I didn't get into it very deep, having just bought these three coins rounds, and then I picked up a little something for myself, which was this tube of actual Mercury dimes. And this was a little bit more significant of an expense than those rounds were, or at least individually. But the guy at the coin shop pointed me to these as a good value with lower premiums than what I was seeing on some of those rounds and coins at the time. And so I picked up an entire tube. So my very first silver purchase was three rounds and a full tube of these Mercury dimes. I picked up more Mercury dimes since then, so I don't know if these are the exact same dimes that I picked up at the time. But Mercury dime's a Mercury dime. None of these are key dates or anything like that, so a lot of them in pretty good shape, though, based on what I've seen since then. As I've been picking through dimes, these are in pretty good shape. None of them are particularly slicked down. They'll have at least some detail left on them. You can read all the words, you can see the dates. And so I was happy to find a shop where I felt more comfortable going in and asking questions that maybe anybody who's been doing this for any length of time would already know the answers to. But that's how you get started, right? You got to go in, you got to ask the questions, and having somebody who's willing to actually give you the time of day to answer those questions was super valuable to me as I was just getting started. And so my encouragement to anybody out there that might be maybe getting ready to start the first time getting into silver is, if you have the luxury of a local coin shop, just go in and start asking questions. And if they're not very receptive, because a lot of these guys have been doing it a long time, haven't met very many young local coin shop owners. They're mostly older guys. And the third shop that I went to in the town nearby where I live, they were really nice too. They were willing to talk with me and answer some of my questions and give me their opinions on what I should and should not be buying. And you always need to do your due diligence, because just because a guy at a local coin shop tells you that it's a good buy doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And so, most of the time I'd go in, ask my questions, leave, do a little research, try to figure out if I shared the same kind of stacking philosophy as the folks that were giving me their opinions, and then I'd go back and make my purchase a little bit later. So one thing that I've learned a little bit over time is that there's no real pressure on buying these things. I mean, you need to be smart about it. You need to be well informed about how you go about purchasing your silver or your bullion without getting too in a hurry. I've probably made that mistake a number of times when I've found things that really caught my eye. I haven't always been super disciplined, and we'll talk more about that in future episodes about maybe having a better plan than I had going in, which was just my plan to begin with was watch YouTube videos and do what they were doing, even though they all disclose the same thing that I probably ought to disclose, that this is not financial advice and that you should do your own due diligence. And I'm just a guy on YouTube showing you some dimes. I don't have any specialized financial knowledge or training, but I do find value in having hard assets in the case where you might be in a currency crisis, or even just a personal crisis that might not be necessarily widespread, but if my family's in need and I have some backup to provide for those needs. Camera's not always wanting to focus real well on these. There we go. So I won't go through every single one of these dimes, but it's a good representation of what I picked up at the coin shop my very first time. Had a mixed experience with my... Oh, actually, you got a barber that slipped in there. A couple of them. How'd those guys get in there? Well, that's a fun find. A couple of barber dimes. Is that a 1915? How about that? Slipped in there on me. Got to get those in their right spots. I kind of keep all my stuff separated. I know a lot of people just throw all their junk together, and all their junk silver and 90% constitutional silver together, and don't worry too much about the type. But I'm a little more OCD than that, so I tend to keep mine separated. So I'll get those guys into their own too. I'll probably have to pick through the rest of these and make sure I don't have any other surprises. But anyway, as I was saying, had a good experience at one shop, not too good experience at my very first shop, and guess who's getting all my money these days? Yeah, the guy at the second shop. I've only bought one thing at that first shop other than a couple of supplies like these tubes I got at that shop, because my regular dealer does not carry things like this. Typically focuses on the bullion. But yeah, I definitely give my business to the folks that are more willing to treat me kindly. And I wouldn't mind it too much if you found the kindness to like this video and subscribe. Just getting this new channel started that's going to go through some of my experiences as a brand new stacker. And if that's something that you want to see more about, maybe share some of your experiences as a stacker as well in the comments below. I sure would appreciate it. Until next time, catch you later.